Welcome to the video on mitochondria. Introduction. The plural form of mitochondrion is mitochondria. Mitochondria are membrane-bound cell organelles found in the cytoplasm of almost all eukaryotic cells. What are eukaryotic cells? These are cells with clearly defined nuclei. Mitochondria are vital to our survival because these generate the majority of the adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell. Being the source of energy, mitochondria are called powerhouses of the cell. They are also involved in various other tasks or functions. The lifespan of a mitochondrion is 5 to 10 days. Different cell types have different numbers of mitochondria. Cells with a high demand for energy tend to have a greater number of mitochondria. For instance, mature red blood cells have none at all, whereas liver cells can have more than 2,000 mitochondria. Around 40% of the cytoplasm in heart muscle cells is taken up by mitochondria. Also, in sperm cells, the mitochondria are spiraled in the middle piece and provide energy for the tail motion. Origin. Mitochondria was discovered by Benda in 1898. There are three views regarding the origin of mitochondria. First is origin from various cell membranes. Second is by division of fully formed mitochondria. And third is the de novo origin. Structure of mitochondria. Mitochondria are small, round to oval, bean-shaped organelles which range in size from 0.5 to 10 micrometers. These are not visible under the microscope unless they are stained. These have a diameter between 0.5 and 1 micrometer and a length up to 7 micrometers and occur free in the cytoplasm. The mitochondrion is bound by two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. Mitochondria are split into different compartments or regions, each of which carries out distinct roles. Mitochondria have their own set of DNA, a unique genome called the mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. Both the outer and the inner mitochondrial membranes are about 60 to 70 angstrom thick. The outer membrane contains more phospholipid and cholesterol than the inner membrane. Phosphatidylcholine is the predominant lipid of the outer membrane, while the inner membrane contains most of the diphosfatidylglycerol, cardiolipin, of the mitochondrial. The space between the two membranes is called the outer chamber or intermembrane space or perimitochondrial space. It is filled with a watery fluid and is 40 to 70 angstrom in width. The space bounded by the inner membrane is called the inner chamber or inner membrane space. The inner membrane space is filled with a matrix which contains dense granules, mitoribosome 70S, circular mitochondrial DNA, and Krebs cycle enzymes. The sides of the inner membrane facing the matrix are called M phase, and that facing the outer membrane are called C phase. The outer membrane is smooth, while the inner membrane is thrown up into a series of folds called cristae, which project into the inner chamber. The cavity of the cristae is called the intercristae space and is continuous with the intermembrane space. Some of the major regions include the outer membrane. Small molecules can pass freely through the outer membrane. This outer portion includes proteins called porins, which form channels that allow proteins to cross. The outer membrane also hosts a number of enzymes within a wide variety of functions. Intermembrane space. This is the area between the inner and the outer membranes. The intermembrane space is involved in the mitochondrial protein translocation. Inner membrane. This membrane holds proteins that have several roles. Because there are no porins in the inner membrane, it is impermeable to most molecules. Molecules can only cross the inner membrane in special membrane transporters. The inner membrane is where most ATP is created. Cristae. These are the folds of the inner membrane. They increase the surface area of the membrane, thereby increasing the space available for chemical reactions. Matrix. This is a space within inner membrane containing hundreds of enzymes. It is important in the production of ATP. The mitochondrial DNA is housed here. The mitochondrial DNA holds the instructions for a number of proteins and other cellular support equipments across 37 genes. A child always receives their mitochondrial DNA from their mother. Because of this, mitochondrial DNA has proven very useful for tracing genetic lines. Functions of mitochondria. Although the best known role of mitochondria is energy production, they carry out other important tasks as well. First, let us see the role of mitochondria in producing energy. Most ATP is produced in the cristae of the inner membrane in mitochondria through a series of reactions known as the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. The ATP molecules are produced as a result of cellular respiration and accumulate in the mitochondria. The molecules power metabolic processes. Mitochondria convert chemical energy from the food we eat into an energy form that the cell can use. This process is called oxidative phosphorylation. The enzymes for Krebs cycle are found in the matrix of the mitochondrion. The Krebs cycle produces a chemical called NADH, which is used by the enzymes embedded in the cristae to produce ATP. In ATP molecules, energy is stored in the form of chemical bonds. When these chemical bonds are broken, the energy can be used. Mitochondria supply nearly all the required biological energy. Only the mitochondria are fully capable of converting pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide and water. They are the respiratory centers of the cell. The enzymes for electron transport are located in the inner membrane of mitochondrion. The role of mitochondria in cell death. Cell death, also called apoptosis, is an essential part of life. As cells become old or broken, they are cleared away and destroyed. Mitochondria help decide which cells are destroyed. Mitochondria release cytochrome C, which activates caspase, one of the chief enzymes involved in destroying cells during apoptosis. Because certain diseases such as cancer involve a breakdown in normal apoptosis, mitochondria are thought to play a role in the disease. Role of mitochondria in storing calcium. Calcium is vital for a number of cellular processes. For instance, releasing calcium back into a cell can initiate the release of a neurotransmitter from a nerve cell or release hormones from endocrine cells. Calcium is also necessary for muscle function, fertilization, and blood clotting, among other things. Mitochondria play a part in calcium regulation by quickly absorbing calcium ions and holding them until they are needed. Other roles for calcium in the cell include regulating cellular metabolism, steroid synthesis, and hormone signaling. Role of mitochondria in heat production. The body can generate heat in many ways, one of which is by using a tissue called brown fat. During a process called proton leak, mitochondria can generate heat. This is known as non-shivering thermogenesis. Mitochondrial disease. The DNA within mitochondria is more susceptible to damage than the rest of the genome. This is because free radicals, which can cause damage to DNA, are produced during ATP synthesis. Also, mitochondria lack the same protective mechanism found in the nucleus of the cell. However, the majority of mitochondrial diseases are due to mutation in nuclear DNA that affects the products that end up in the mitochondria. These mutations can either be inherited or spontaneous. When mitochondria stop functioning, the cell they are in is starved of energy. So, depending on the type of cell, symptoms can vary widely. Although symptoms of a mitochondrial disease vary greatly, they might include loss of muscle coordination and weakness, problems with vision or hearing, learning disabilities, heart, liver, or kidney disease, gastrointestinal problems, neurological problems including dementia. Other conditions that are thought to involve some level of mitochondrial dysfunction include Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Huntington disease, diabetes, autism. Mitochondria and aging. Over recent years, researchers have investigated a link between mitochondria dysfunction and aging. There are a number of theories surrounding aging, and the mitochondrial free radical theory of aging has become popular over the last decade or so. The theory is that reactive oxygen species, ROS, are produced in mitochondria as a byproduct of energy production. These highly charged particles damage DNA, fats, and proteins. Because of the damage caused by ROS, the functional parts of mitochondria are damaged. When the mitochondria can no longer function so well, more ROS are produced, worsening the damage further. Although correlations between mitochondrial activity and aging have been found, not all scientists have reached the same conclusion. The exact role in aging process is still unknown.